This is Barak Wisbrod. He's one of the best poker players in 2026, netting over $2.4 million in tracked winnings over the last few years. Barak specializes in high-stakes online cash games, playing as high as $200-400 with a $40,000 buy-in. He uses an unorthodox yet brilliantly simple approach. It gives him a huge leg up on his top-tier opponents, it saves him a ton of time, and best of all, it's something that you can do too. Here's the problem. Most poker players spend a lot of time and energy trying to bet the perfect size on each flop. They might have heuristics like betting big on dynamic high card flops, or they might dive deep into solvers and try to memorize the exact perfect size and the accompanying range for every single flop. This doesn't just sap your energy, it takes a ton of time to go through the hundreds of different flop combinations. Multiply that by all of the different positional matchups, under the gun versus big blind, button versus big blind, and so on. It's basically impossible to memorize all of these intricacies. For much of his career, Barak has done it differently. He found a way to skip most of this flop studying, which frees him up to study the turn and river, where pots are bigger and decisions are more consequential. Barak bets around a third of the pot on every single flop. Every texture, nearly every positional matchup when he's in position, one small size. This might sound pretty crazy, especially given he's playing high stakes where his opponents are strong enough to exploit a simplified strategy, but it works, and here's why. First, let's talk about the reduced complexity that Barak benefits from. If you were to try to play a multi-size strategy on the flop, where on the same board you sometimes bet one size and sometimes another, the game tree explodes. You can see it here where when you use 3 different sizes on the flop, things get out of control very quickly going into the turn and the river. This is a very big game tree, a lot of different nodes to study if you want to truly have a robust and well thought out strategy. Compare that to a strategy where you just bet a single size on the flop and the game tree reduces exponentially. Now, to be fair, that is comparing Barak's strategy to an extreme. Multi-sizing strategies are well known to be difficult to execute, and a lot of poker players don't even attempt them unless they have an exploitative reason to do so. Most strong pros do pick just one size to use on each flop, but they vary that size across different flop textures. So for example, on one flop they might bet 33% pot, whereas on another flop they might overbet or bet 75% pot. While that is simpler than a multi-size strategy, it's still a lot to deal with when it comes to building your strategies. You have to remember which size goes with which flop depending on which position you and your opponent are, and then for each of those flops, you have to memorize the range that goes along with that specific size. Multiply that by dozens or hundreds of flops, and it's a mountain of studying that you have in front of you. Barak just has to remember, bet around 1/3 of the pot on every flop. He still needs to learn the range that goes along with that size, but he's cut out an enormous amount of his study time and memorization that his opponents are grinding through. By the way, a quick side note, I keep saying the word memorization. I don't want to give you the wrong idea. You don't have to study these solver outputs until your eyes bleed and memorize every little combo and intricacy. That's really a waste of your time. You should just be nailing down the general shapes of the strategies, and that's going to do you more than enough good at the table. You don't have to get a major in solver outputs. This approach works in part because the EV loss is minimal. By using a cookie cutter size on every flop, Barak is sacrificing expected value. His strategy isn't making quite as much money as the strategy that uses the best possible bet size on every board. I've pulled up a sample of 5 different flops, and we have listed here the best size on that flop along with the expected value of that best size, and then I've compared it to the expected value of betting 1/3 pot on that board. Now you can see that on a couple of these, the optimal size is a 1/3 pot, so obviously there's no expected value loss there. But the other three have very small EV loss when you use that smaller size. The biggest EV loss is 0.06 big blinds. That is a comically small amount of money that will really have a negligible impact at best over the course of weeks, months, or even your entire poker career. While your opponents are grinding through hundreds of different flop textures, you get to take a shortcut to the turn and river. That's where pots are 2, 3, sometimes 10 times bigger than they are on the flop. This video is brought to you by Lucid Poker, the app that helps you play, learn, win, and repeat. Let me show you how easy it is to study Barak's approach within the Lucid Poker app. Hey, I'm over here now. Let's say you're playing a cash game and the action folds to you in the cutoff. You raise it up and only the big blind calls. The flop comes king, queen, 5 with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks. And now you're looking at whether you should c-bet or check. And you can see in this multi-sizing strategy that we've given the solver here, sometimes it checks, sometimes it bets 3/4 pot, and sometimes it bets 1.5 times the pot. Both of these bigger sizes are pretty well liked by the solver, and it never uses the small 1/3 pot size. But the downside of that is that this is a very complicated chart to even look at, let alone memorize. It's worth noting that down here, the expected value of this strategy for you as the in-position player is 3.48 big blinds. Now let's compare that to when you play a simplified 33% pot strategy. Again, this was a size the solver never used before, but despite that, the expected value only ticks down to 3.45. That's a difference of 3/10 of a big blind. Very, very little, so you're really not losing any value in practice. Then you look at the benefit of this being so much simpler. Now you're either betting 1/3 of the pot or you're checking. This is just so much more approachable. A bunch of these hands are betting so frequently, like this Jack-9 suited, that you can pretty much just round up to bet every time. So this is going to be a much, much easier strategy to internalize and execute. It's really easy to study this simplified small sizing strategy here in Lucid. We have this special cash 6max single size pack where you can browse this 1/3 pot only strategy for every board under the sun. You can also practice this strategy before taking it to the table using the Lucid Poker leaderboard sims. Here I've set up the single size strategy and we're seeing only that 1/3 pot or check option. And then we can really drill this approach until it becomes damn near second nature. You can play up to 20 leaderboard hands or look up a handful of post-flop spots in the sim browser every day for free. If you want unlimited access to these features, upgrade your account to Pro with a 2-week free trial. Go to lucidpoker.com or click the link in the description. I've studied a lot of Barak's play in preparation for this video, and while he has seemed to deviate a little bit from this approach recently, especially in certain positions, it is something that seemed to help him get to the top of the food chain in poker. There are 2 other key notes about this approach that I want to talk about before I wrap this one up. First of all, a solid upside here, which is if your opponents are also studying solvers, and you're using an unconventional size for a particular flop, if you're using this 1/3 size on a flop where normally people bet big, you're going to be betting a size that your opponents haven't studied. So they're not going to necessarily know how to react to it based on the study time they've implemented. They'd have to kind of intuit it out, and that's where mistakes can happen. But there is an other side of the coin. There is a cost, which is you aren't studying the common size. So if your opponents are using the big size that the solver does prefer, now you're going to be caught a little bit on your back foot. So, you are going to have to jump into the solver and study some other sizes here and there. This isn't a catch-all. But when it comes to you playing as the aggressor, you're really saving a lot of time. But on the other side, when you're playing as the caller, when you're the player in the big blind, you're going to have to focus on studying those other sizes that your opponents might use. The guy who I think is the best poker coach in the world, Uri Peleg, is the one who told me about this approach that Barak takes, and ever since he shared it with me, I was looking forward to making a video like this. I just wanted to wait until we had that single size sim option within Lucid, so now you can go study and practice the approach for yourself. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you're gonna give this a shot or what strategy you prefer to implement. And if you want a simple trick for playing flush draws that will help you make a good amount more money at the table, watch this video next. It takes like 3 minutes and it's a really simple approach that you can add to your game.